If not, on this vote, the yeas are 35, the nays are 64. Under the previous order requiring 60 votes for the adoption of this amendment, the amendment is not agreed to.
Mr. President, I move for reconsideration and ask that the motion be laid on the table.
Without objection, so ordered.
I thank the Chair. Mr. President, next is Senator Carper's amendment number 2065.
Mr. President, I ask
Senator from Delaware.
I ask unanimous consent to withdraw amendment number 2065.
Senator has that right. Amendment has not been called up.
I thank my friend from Delaware. We go now to Senator Paul's amendment number 2029.
Mr. President, I ask
Senator from Kentucky.
I ask unanimous consent that Amendment 2029 with the modifications at the desk be reported or called.
Is there objection? Without objection, the clerk will report the amendment as modified.
The senator from Kentucky, Mr. Paul, proposes amendment number 2029 as modified.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent to waive the reading of the amendment.
Without objection, the senator is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. President, this amendment would add to a technical change to the profitability plan that's already required under the bill, and it would simply ask that when they do the profitability plan, that they report on whether Congress is helping or hurting. And a lot of times we do things that are well-intentioned that may not work out, and I think they need to let us know more about whether Congress is helping or hurting the process, and I urge adoption of this amendment.
Mr. President.
Senator from Connecticut.
Mr. President, I support the amendment. The underlying bill requires the Postal Service to send us a detailed plan for attaining long-term financial solvency, and this amendment would add several factors to the list of items that should be considered in the report. I think it strengthens the bill, and I move its adoption by voice.
Mr. President, I too support the amendment and urge its adoption.
If there is no further debate, the question is on the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted.
Mr. President, I move for reconsideration. Ask that the motion be laid on the table.
Without objection. So ordered.
Thank you. And now next is Senator Carper's amendment number 2066.
Then I call up amendment number 2066.
The clerk will report.
I ask unanimous consent that the further reading be dispensed with on 2066.
Without objection.
Mr. President, the Senate is not in order.
Chamber will come to order. The Senate will be in order. Please take your conversations outside the chamber. The senator from Delaware.
Thank you, Mr. President. Some of our colleagues have raised justifiable concerns about the level of compensation that has gone to some of the most senior officials at the United States Postal Service. One, a compensation package for one previous leader of the Postal Service was in excess of $1 million. And in a day and age when rank and file postal employees are going to be asked to make some sacrifices as labor negotiations go forward, I think it's important for us to remember the concept of leadership by example. And this amendment makes sure that, frankly, deferred compensation packages of the kinds I just described do not occur. It would cut in half from 12 to 6 the number of postal executives who are able to receive compensation in excess of a cabinet-level salary, but to give the Board of Governors the ability to pay fee for good progress toward reducing the budget deficit at the Postal Service to pay above that up to about $270,000. And the last thing we say is that the idea that senior executives at the Postal Service don't have to pay anything for health care or don't have to pay anything for their life insurance, that's wrong, and that should end, and we do that with this amendment.
Senator's time has expired.
Mr. President, I support the amendment on executive compensation. I believe it addresses this matter in a manner that President Bush 41 might have called prudent. And I move for a voice vote, that it be adopted by voice vote.
If there's no further debate, all those in further say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. Ayes do have it. The amendment is agreed to.
I thank the chair, Mr. President. I move for reconsideration, ask that the motion be laid on the table.
Without objection.
Thank you. Next is Senator Paul's amendment number 2039.
Mr. President,
Senator from Kentucky.
ask unanimous consent to call up amendment number 2039.
The clerk will report.
The Senator from Kentucky, Mr. Paul, proposes amendment number 2039.
Ask unanimous consent that we waive the reading of the amendment.
Without objection.
Let's be frank, the post office is bankrupt, and only dramatic action will fix the post office. The problem really is labor cost. 80% of the post office costs are labor. If you look at UPS, it's about 50%. If you look at FedEx, it's about 38%. Before we close one post office, before we end Saturday mail, before we ask citizens for poorer services or higher prices, maybe we ought to look at the root of the problem. Even FDR, the biggest of the big government advocates, said this about collective bargaining. All government employees should realize that the process of collective bargaining, as usually understood, cannot be transplanted into public service. So agreeing with FDR, I would hope my colleagues from across the aisle will agree with their patron saint FDR and will support this amendment that would end collective bargaining. And in the interest of time, I'll be happy to have a voice vote.
Senator's time has expired.
Mr. President.
Senator from Maine.
Mr. President, could we have order, please?
Chamber will come to order.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, this amendment would strip from the postal workers the right to collectively bargain. This is an enormous change in labor law. Postal workers have had the right to engage in collective bargaining for more than 30 years. We did make changes in this bill in the arbitration process. We made sure that if a contract dispute went to arbitration, that the arbitrator has to consider the financial condition of the Postal Service. That will help bring balance into the system, but there is no justification for completely removing the right of workers to collectively bargain. I urge that we reject the amendment.
All time has expired.
Mr. President,
The question is on the amendment number 2039.
request the yeas and nays.
Is there a sufficient second? There appears to be. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka, Mr. Alexander, Ms. Ayotte, Mr. Barrasso, Mr. Baucus, Mr. Bekich, Mr. Bennett, Mr. Bingaman, Mr. Blumenthal, Mr. Blunt, Mr. Bozeman, Mrs. Boxer, Mr. Brown of Massachusetts, Mr. Brown of Ohio. Mr. Burr, Ms. Cantwell, Mr. Cardin, Mr. Carper, Mr. Casey, Mr. Chambliss, Mr. Coates, Mr. Coburn,
Mr. Cochran. Ms. Collins. Mr. Conrad. Mr. Coons. Mr. Corker. Mr. Cornyn. Mr. Crapo. Mr. Dement. Mr. Durbin. Mr. Enzi. Mrs. Feinstein. Mr. Franken. Mrs. Gillibrand. Mr. Graham. Mr. Grassley. Mrs. Hagan. Mr. Harkin. Mr. Hatch. Mr. Heller. Mrs. Hutchison. Mr. Inhofe. Mr. Inouye. Mr. Isaacson. Mr. Johans. Mr. Johnson of Wisconsin. Mr. Johnson of South Dakota. Mr. Carey. Mr. Kirk. Ms. Klobuchar. Mr. Cole. Mr. Kyle. Ms. Landrieu. Mr. Lautenberg. Mr. Leahy. Mr. Lee. Mr. Levin. Mr. Lieberman. Mr. Lugar. Mr. Manchin. Mr. McCain. Mrs. McCaskill. He had his hand up. Thank you, sir. Mr. McConnell. Mr. Menendez. Mr. Merkley. Ms. Mikulski. Mr. Moran. Ms. Murkowski. Mrs. Murray. Mr. Nelson of Nebraska. Mr. Nelson of Florida. Mr. Paul. Mr. Portman. Mr. Pryor. Mr. Reed of Rhode Island. Mr. Reed of Nevada. Mr. Risch. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Rockefeller. Mr. Rubio. Mr. Sanders. Mr. Schumer. Mr. Sessions.
Mrs. Shaheen, Mr. Shelby, Ms. Snow, Ms. Stabenow, Mr. Tester, Mr. Thune, Mr. Toomey, Mr. Udall of Colorado, Mr. Udall of New Mexico, Mr. Vitter, Mr. Warner, Mr. Webb, Mr. Whitehouse, Mr. Wicker, Mr. Wyden. Senators voting. Go ahead, sir. Senators voting in the affirmative: Barrasso, Burr, Chambliss, Corker, Cornyn, Crapo, DeMint, Graham, Hatch, Heller, Inhofe, Kyle, Lee, McConnell, Paul, Risch, Sessions, Shelby, Thune, and Vitter. Mr. Enzi, aye. Senators voting in the negative: Senators voting in the negative: Akaka, Alexander, Ayotte, Baucus, Bekich, Bennett, Bingaman, Blumenthal, Blunt, Bozeman, Boxer, Brown of Massachusetts, Brown of Ohio, Cantwell, Cardin, Carper, Casey, Coates, Coburn, Cochran, Collins, Coons, Durbin, Feinstein, Franken, Gillibrand, Grassley, Hagan, Harkin, Hoven, Hutchison, Isaacson, Johans, Johnson of Wisconsin, Johnson of South Dakota, Carey, Klobuchar, Cole, Landrieu, Lautenberg, Leahy, Lugar, Manchin, McCaskill, Menendez, Merkley, Mikulski, Moran, Murkowski, Murray, Nelson, Nebraska, Nelson of Florida, Portman, Pryor, Reed of Rhode Island, Rockefeller, Sanders, Schumer, Shaheen, Snow, Tester, Udall of Colorado, Warner, Webb, and Wyden. Mr. Toomey, aye. Mr. Inouye, no. Ms. Conrad. Mr. Conrad? No. Mr. Udall of New Mexico? No. Mr. Wicker? No. Mr. Levin? No. Mr. Rubio? No. Mr. Reed of Nevada? No. Mr. Lieberman? Mr. Lieberman? No. Mr. Whitehouse? No. Mr. Roberts? No. Ms. Stabenow? No. Mr. McCain? Mr. McCain? Aye. Mrs.
Are there any members in the chamber wishing to vote or to change their vote? See none on this vote. The yeas are 23, the nays are 76. Under the previous order requiring 60 votes for the adoption of this amendment, the amendment is not agreed to.
Mr. President, I move to reconsider and ask
Senator
the motion be
Connecticut.
placed on the table.
Without objection.
I thank the chair. Mr. President, the next on our list, we're moving well. I thank my colleagues. Senator Casey's amendment number 2042.
Mr. President.
The senator from Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to speak on amendment number 2042, and this is really an amendment to maintain standards that we've had a right to expect and have expected for many generations, and that's the standard of service that the Postal Service, I should say, has come to be known for. I'm not asking for anything that this agreement that...
Senate will come to order. Please carry your conversations out of the well and outside the chamber.
Mr. President, I'm calling up amendment number 2042.
The clerk will report the amendment.
The senator from Pennsylvania, Mr. Casey, proposes amendment number 2042.
Mr. President, this is about the standard of service that we've come to expect from the Postal Service for many generations. And I realize a lot of work has gone into this consensus that has developed that we know we need to make changes to the Postal Service. But one thing we shouldn't change or downgrade or compromise or degrade in any way is the standard of service. And I think what we should do is have a 4-year moratorium on the implementation that would lead to changes, because there will be a lot of changes made the next couple of years upon enactment. What we shouldn't do, though, is move too quickly to change the standard of service that people have had a right to rely upon. I'd ask for a yes vote on this amendment. I should note for the record the co-sponsors, Senators Brown of Ohio, Senator Sanders, Senator Baucus, Senator Leahy, McCaskill, Shaheen, Merkley, and Menendez, and I'd ask for a yes vote.
Mr. President.
Senator from Connecticut.
Mr. President, I rise to oppose the amendment by my friend from Pennsylvania. Mr. President, everybody acknowledges that the Postal Service is in crisis, losing $23 million a day. Mail volume has dropped 21% in the last 5 years. And that means that we simply cannot afford every mail processing facility that exists, because there's not that much mail anymore. The Postal Service will only survive if we change it. Our bill allows for orderly change. This amendment would basically maintain the status quo for 4 years, and I think in doing so really is a kind of invitation to the Postal Service to go into bankruptcy, and our country can't afford that. So respectfully, I'd oppose the amendment.
All time has expired. The question is on Casey Amendment number 2042.
Mr. President, I would ask for the yeas and nays.
Is there a sufficient second? There appears to be. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka. Mr. Alexander. Ms. Ayotte. Mr. Barrasso. Mr. Baucus. Mr. Begich. Mr. Bennett. Mr. Bingaman. Mr. Blumenthal. Mr. Blunt. Mr. Bozeman. Mrs. Boxer. Mr. Brown of Massachusetts. Mr. Brown of Ohio. Mr. Burr. Ms. Cantwell. Mr. Cardin. Mr. Carper. Mr. Casey. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Coates. Mr. Coburn. Mr. Cochran. Ms. Collins. Mr. Conrad. Mr. Coons. Mr. Corker.
No.
Mr. Cornyn. Mr. Crapo. Mr. Dement. Mr. Durbin. Mr. Enzi. Mrs. Feinstein. Mr. Franken. Mrs. Gillibrand. Mr. Graham. Mr. Grassley. Mrs. Hagan. Mr. Harkin. Mr. Hatch. Mr. Heller. Mr. Hoven. Mrs. Hutchison. Mr. Inhofe. Mr. Inouye. Mr. Isaacson. Mr. Johans. Mr. Johnson of Wisconsin. Mr. Johnson of South Dakota. Mr. Kerry. Mr. Kirk. Ms. Klobuchar. Mr. Cole. Mr. Kyle. Ms. Landrieu. Mr. Lautenberg. Mr. Leahy. Mr. Lee. Mr. Levin. Mr. Lieberman. Mr. Lugar. Mr. Manchin. Mr. McCain. Mrs. McCaskill. Mr. McConnell. Mr. Menendez. Mr. Merkley. Ms. Mikulski. Mr. Moran. Ms. Murkowski. Mrs. Murray. Mr. Nelson of Nebraska. Mr. Nelson of Florida. Mr. Paul, Mr. Portman, Mr. Pryor, Mr. Reed of Rhode Island, Mr. Reed of Nevada, Mr. Risch, Mr. Roberts, Mr. Rockefeller, Mr. Rubio, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Schumer, Mr. Sessions, Mrs. Shaheen, Mr. Shelby, Ms. Snow, Ms. Stabenow, Mr. Tester, Mr. Thune, Mr. Toomey, Mr. Udall of Colorado, Mr. Vitter, Mr. Warner. Mr. Webb. Mr. Whitehouse. Mr. Wicker. Mr. Wyden. Senators voting in the affirmative: Akaka, Baucus, Begich, Bennett, Blumenthal, Boxer, Brown of Ohio, Cantwell, Cardin, Casey, Durbin, Franken, Gillibrand, Heller, Johnson of South Dakota, Klobuchar, Cole, Lautenberg, Levin, Manchin, McCaskill, Menendez, Merkley, Mikulski, Pryor, Sanders, Schumer, Stabenow, Tester, Udall of New Mexico, Whitehouse, Wyden. Mr. Harkin, aye. Senators voting in the negative: Alexander, Ayotte, Barrasso, Blunt, Bozeman, Brown of Massachusetts, Burr, Carper, Chambliss, Coates, Coburn, Cochran, Collins, Coons, Corker, Cornyn, DeMint, Enzi, Feinstein, Graham, Grassley, Hatch, Hoeven, Hutchison, Inhofe, Isaacson, Johans, Johnson of Wisconsin, Kyle, Lee, Lieberman, Lugar, McCain, Moran, Murkowski, Murray, Nelson of Florida, Paul, Portman, Reed of Nevada, Roberts, Rubio, Sessions, Shelby, Thune, Toomey, Vitter, Warner. Mr. Reed of Rhode Island, Mr. Reed of Rhode Island, aye. Mr. Leahy. Mr. Leahy, aye. Mr. Rockefeller. Mr. Rockefeller, aye. Mr. Kerry. Mr. Kerry, aye. Mrs. Shaheen. Mrs. Shaheen, aye. Mr. Crapo. Mr. Crapo, no. Mr. Webb. Mr. Webb, aye. Mr. Risch. Mr. Risch, no. Mrs. Murray. Mrs. Murray, aye. Mr. Bingaman. Mr. Bingaman, no. Mr. Inouye. Mr. Inouye, aye. Mr. Nelson of Nebraska. Mr. Nelson of Nebraska, aye. Ms. Snow. Ms. Snow, aye. Mr. Wicker. Mr. Wicker, no. Mrs. Hagan, no. Mr. Udall, Colorado. Mr. Udall, Colorado, aye. Ms. Landrieu, no. Mr. McConnell, no.
Other members switching to vote or to change their vote? On this vote, the yeas are 44, the nays are 54. Under the previous order requiring 60 votes for the adoption of this amendment, the amendment is not agreed to.
Mr. President,
Senator from Connecticut.
I move for reconsideration, ask that the motion be placed on the table.
Without objection.
Mr. President, the next amendment is Senator Paul's amendment number 2038, and he has asked that I withdraw that on his behalf, which I do now. And therefore,
without objection.
Excuse. And now we'll next is Senator Landrieu, 2072.
Mr. President, I call up my amendment 2072.
The clerk will report.
The Senator from Louisiana, Ms. Landrieu, proposes amendment number 2072.
I ask consent that further...
There will be 2 minutes of debate, equally divided.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of this amendment to offer to my colleagues on behalf of Senator Snowe and myself and Senator Stabenow and Senator Shaheen. We are very concerned, Mr. President, that the Post Office has not looked carefully enough at the impact that some of its decisions might have on small businesses that rely on their operations. So all this amendment says, and I understand there's no opposition, and I understand we might be able to take it by voice vote, is that included in the studies that the Post Office is going to do to analyze their way forward, they must consider the impact on small businesses that they serve. As you know, Mr. President, in some areas, particularly rural areas, this is really an arm of the small business, and we can't have that arm chopped off. So that is the amendment. I don't believe there's any opposition, and if the managers would accept this by voice vote, we could save some time.
Mr. President.
Senator from Connecticut.
I thank the Chair. Mr. President, I thank Senator Landrieu for introducing this amendment. I support it enthusiastically. It would strengthen the protections regarding the closing of processing facilities and requires the Postal Service to take into account the impact of any potential closing or consolidation on small businesses. This amendment reminds us about how many people and how many businesses, including particularly small businesses across America, depend on the U.S. Postal Service and why it's so important for us to change it to save it. So I thank my friend from Louisiana for introducing this amendment. I'd ask that we adopt this amendment by voice vote, and I move its adoption.
All time has expired. Question is on the amendment. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to.
Mr. President, I move for reconsideration, ask that the motion be placed on the table.
Without objection.
I thank the Chair. Next is Senator DeMint's Amendment 2046.
Mr. President, I'd like to call up Amendment number 2046.
Clerk will report.
The Senator from South Carolina, Mr. DeMint, proposes amendment
I
number
ask the
2046.
reading of the amendment be suspended.
Without objection.
Mr. President.
There will be 2 minutes of debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. This amendment is the Paycheck Protection Act, and it protects the First Amendment rights of postal workers by requiring postal labor unions to obtain prior approval from their workers before they spend their dues money on behalf of political parties, political candidates, or other political advocacy. Unions are the only organization in many states that can not only force people to join, but forcibly use their dues for political purposes without the permission of the members. 60% of union members object to their dues being spent for political purposes without their permission. This amendment protects their right to have their dues used in a way that they intend it to be used. So I encourage my colleagues to support this freedom, this protection of constitutional rights. It is consistent with the Supreme Court ruling of Communications Workers versus Beck, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Mr. President, I oppose this amendment. This is taking a bill that has the urgent purpose of saving the U.S. Postal Service, changing it to save it, and bringing in a matter of internal labor union business. The fact is that no postal employee is forced to join a union, but once one does, the union leadership can guide the policy positions that unions support through the democratic processes within the unions. No postal employee himself or herself is forced to involuntarily support the advocacy or political activities of a union. That's their choice whether to join it. But once they do, their leadership has the right to participate in the political process. So I urge my colleagues to vote against this amendment.
All time has expired.
Mr. President, I'd like to yield balance of my time to Senator Collins and ask unanimous consent.
All time has expired.
I ask unanimous consent that she might have 30 seconds to explain her position.
If it's expired.
Is there an objection? Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. President. I urge support of Senator DeMint's amendment. It protects the First Amendment rights of postal workers by requiring that unions obtain prior approval from workers before spending their dues on political purposes. I think this is probably the one and only amendment where I will diverge with my chairman, but I do urge support of Senator DeMint's amendment.
The question is on the amendment.
Ayes and nays.
Is there a sufficient second? There appears to be. There is. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka. Mr. Alexander. Ms. Ayotte. Mr. Barrasso. Mr. Baucus. Mr. Beckich. Mr. Bennett. Mr. Bingaman, Mr. Blumenthal, Mr. Blunt, Mr. Bozeman, Mrs. Boxer, Mr. Brown of Massachusetts, Mr. Brown of Ohio, Mr. Burr, Ms. Cantwell. Mr. Cardin. Mr. Carper. Mr. Casey. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Coates. Mr. Coburn. Mr. Cochran. Ms. Collins. Mr. Conrad. Mr. Coons. Mr. Corker. Mr. Cornyn. Mr. Crapo. Mr. DeMint. Mr. Durbin. Mr. Enzi. Mrs. Feinstein. Mr. Franken.
2073, this is 2074.
Mrs. Gillibrand.
Oh, it is.
Mr. Graham. Mr. Grassley. Mrs. Hagan.
Thank you.
Mr. Harkin. Mr. Hatch.
Let me change the page numbers too.
Mr. Heller. Mr. Hoven.
What was the last one you were trying to say? Okay. What about it?
Mrs. Hutchison. Mr. Inhofe. Mr. Inouye. Mr. Isaacson. Mr. Johans. Mr. Johnson of Wisconsin. Mr. Johnson of South Dakota. Mr. Carey. Mr. Kirk. Ms. Klobuchar. Mr. Cole. Mr. Kyle. Ms. Landrieu. Yes, sir. Mr. Lautenberg. Mr. Leahy. Mr. Lee. Mr. Levin. Mr. Lieberman. Mr. Lugar. Mr. Manchin. Mr. McCain. Mrs. McCaskill. Mr. McConnell. Mr. Menendez. Mr. Merkley. Ms. Mikulski. Mr. Moran. Ms. Murkowski. Mrs. Murray. Mr. Nelson of Nebraska. Mr. Nelson of Florida. Mr. Paul. Mr. Portman. Mr. Pryor. Mr. Reed of Rhode Island. Mr. Reed of Nevada. Mr. Risch. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Rockefeller.
Will officially
Mr. Rubio. Mr. Sanders. Mr. Schumer. Mr. Sessions. Mrs. Shaheen. Mr. Shelby. Ms. Snow. Ms. Stabenow. Mr. Tester. Mr. Thune. Mr. Toomey. Mr. Udall of Colorado. Mr. Udall of New Mexico. Mr. Vitter. Mr. Warner. Mr. Webb. Mr. Whitehouse. Mr. Wicker. Mr. Wyden. Senators voting in the affirmative. Mr. McConnell. Senators voting in the affirmative: Alexander, Ayotte, Barrasso, Blunt, Bozeman, Brown in Massachusetts, Burr, Coates, Coburn, Cochran, Collins, Porker, Cornyn, Dement, Enzi, Graham, Grassley, Hatch, Heller, Hutchison, Inhofe, Isaacson, Johans, Johnson of Wisconsin, Lugar, McCain, McConnell, Paul, Portman, Roberts, Sessions, Shelby, Boone, Toomey, Vitter, and Wicker. Mr. Moran, aye. Ms. Snow. Ms. Snow, aye. Mr. Kyle, aye. Mr. Crapo, aye. Mr. Risch, aye. Mr. Lee, aye. Senators voting in the negative: Akaka, Beckich, Bennett, Bingaman, Blumenthal, Boxer, Brown of Ohio, Cantwell, Cardin, Carpert, Casey, Coons, Feinstein, Franken, Gillibrand, Hagan, Harkin, Inouye, Johnson, South Dakota, Carey, Cole, Landrieu, Lautenberg, Leahy, Lieberman, Manchin, McCaskill, Mikulski, Murray, Nelson, Nebraska, Nelson of Florida, Pryor, Reed of Rhode Island, Reed of Nevada, Rockefeller, Sanders, Shaheen, Stabenow, Tester, Udall of Colorado, Webb, Whitehouse, and Wyden. Mr. Levin, no. Mr. Warner, no. Mr. Menendez, no. Mr. Rubio, aye. Ms. Klobuchar, no. Mr. Durbin, no. Mr. Schumer, no. Mr. Conrad. Mr. Conrad, no. Mr. Hoven. Mr. Hoven, aye. Mr. Baucus. Mr. Baucus, no. Mr. Chambliss, aye. Mr. Merkley, no. Mr. Udall of New Mexico, no.
I've been putting them on.
Ms. Murkowski, aye.
Are there any senators who wish to vote or to change their vote? On this vote, the yeas are 46, the nays are 53. Under the previous order requiring 60 votes for the adoption of this amendment, the amendment is not agreed to.
Madam President, I move for reconsideration and ask that the motion be laid on the table.